Nega, they are to the yogi pogori. Immediately out of their karma. As I video shoe, take that Himaya armor to delete it or the Kana, the second of the second, 6 to 2, the Maria Torres, the Maria Pietore. That is the Maria Buddha Swaga. Kanika 60 Kakatalo, don't have it. A day before a Kama Kana Mata Titi was somebody to Potaro. Ohara Tijani Ragaro Kanika 60 Kakata Sanika Samari one. Sanika Samari. There are many SADHU and literate. Bounce a bit of yoga. Kanika Shivaima. Two people play chair, Ragaro. A chat of Marie, she did it to the TV Java. Let me atom here come her. Take the 20 there, chat of Marie, how Johnny tape, so good on my solo. Kanika Samari, Tantali, two of you over let me get down. Get down, press a video. Jology, Bushim, and Anamolo. The news video Purava. You say not on the yogi now. The ball follow. Kubeka, a lolo for it, I see it. The ball follows a lomolo level, Kanika Samari, people were the state of Maloevo. Kanika Samari, Amagong solution level. Being a people, Malwebo, whether than people, Malwebo. Did a Kanika Samari kill? She takes my shoe, the review, someone said, has a time on it. Pumping was a poor ayo. Mulota Chindaga CS, I video. Mafu, maybe to down where to the body. That is down, take a year and see about it. And I take Yachi.
Yesterday, Sayadawgyi spoke about how when yogis are practicing, when they apply effort and aiming to observe the object steadfastly, when sati occurs, second by second, collectedness of mind also occurs. The samadhi that the Buddha described, he called it Kanika Chetekagata. And in revealing the meaning of this, it was also referred to as Kanamatatitiko, samadhi that is established for a moment, and also Kanika Samadhi, momentary concentration. Yesterday, Sayadawgyi spoke about this in terms of theory and practice. Because the adjective kanika, or momentary, is used, one understands that there are also other types of concentration or samadhi. But when we practice, if we describe all of these different ones together, it may be confusing. So Sayadawgyi felt that it is more clear to describe the samadhi that arises in practice, kanika samadhi, and just describe that alone. Those who listened carefully understood, and one just needs to do the work then. So if one doesn't apply effort and aiming to create sati, then it won't be easy for samadhi, Khanika samadhi, to develop. And if Khanika samadhi is weak, then panya, wisdom, will also not be easy to develop. So in order to make Khanika samadhi arise and become good, one simply has to, as the saying goes, one has to observe at the moment of arising with aim and effort. So every arising object, starting with the rising and the falling, the yogi has to apply ardent effort and accurate aim in order to observe the object steadfastly. So this is the task of the yogi. This is always present, and it's very important.
Tajja yogi pukkul ma ati popola de ayunigo tu porong porese pulu de chiro ma boli like maya melota like maya like bit of matte soda to hope pare ami le de tatta bit of maya da Tajja do tichu yogi de one leja pare Buddha nija Jesus Mahasi Sayadaw Sayadawgyi U Panditabhivamsa ati pore ayunigo ami tatta niyata one le de tichu le pyo ja pare Atale thai ji ne maya bu la so da pare Atale ji ne pi da be so da juru le be thro chat Megun le thok ja pare Tiro adi yogi pukkul de ro ko dai lok chi ba lo adi tai ma da be pyo chin da ba be ami tatta pi lo ma ya da take lo a lo ami ta de tabo ba ma lo ba ne apu le lo ta do ma ho ba bu era na le ya ba le
At the start of the practice, yogis need to observe every newly arising object while they are fresh. One has to observe, and one has to do so without missing. So one has to keep on observing the objects, and one also not only to observe, but one needs to apply a label as they observe the objects. And some yogis find this a burden. They say, this method which the Buddha taught, which Mahasi Sayadaw explained, using labels when observing every newly arising object, is very tiring. Can't we just look at it? Isn't that enough? They ask. Sayadawgyi would like to say to this, just try it. He says, labeling is really needed. It's not optional.
Patama so Choma Kyo also Viro the Shini is so kind like na kind like body. Choma Nene Piosa Pubi Solution Salone has sat in our Kabia lady in a twelve in a Shiva. Pepas I'm a so body, but it was on Salongo you sat in our body. Through my she lady at Tan lady level, took it all over the air. a tanglady Twitter so she so long as it took cool pound Wara, Piade, and Nepiade, Pocolidi, and a little Nenega Savio, the Java, take your right and Lovia. You are only by the solution ABCD. You are now Salon Bound Lady Police, CD K to RAT to Savi Body. Tanulidi, Lenny, Sadia. Sigma Glenn in Dolomia. She allowed to go level at some Hama Trippy at the low. The web she do all level at some Hama Levy of Toya. Took it down, not on the Pugoria. At some PPM, not on the Pugoria, Barbiores, not in Himalaya. At some PPM, she may have all the world. Era Chibo. I don't say yogis or Korea popular Ayurvedic group or Rumbozema. Immediately Tata with Maya, a Yachi Kisatia Baba. A Yachi of Kisatia Lures whenever. Yachi of Kisatia, said later she was. Take Malone with local law. Nick could a lower man. Don't say Mamma. Chafey lower water. Eddie no Pemaro, Joya, Yajiva. I can't see Joya Yanima. Eddie Chelijan, Peter, Kisaha, Yichizu Kisadama Parava. Jawamsa Kaleha, the Salongo, a Tandroclady, Mamma Neboli. Take Yabuya, take Yichiva. Tamama, no man. Mamma took a tree, she are level Mamma took a clear and Mamma, let it over to him, a Korea and Tantria. Chain Mamma look here, chain dear everything, we have. Julia, Salon lady at Tamana, solution. Now Salon lady, level, Bomb with a Twitter. Now, Waja to Rolady, send it to Rolady. Young and Pata Yet had a lady, the lady to PV Pata Lave. But the matter of Tantopa was there. Now, Sava drinking lobby solution. A Tamatoa, a Tamatoya, 6 year Patoya, the Colon Nala, and Yoga. To Tiashima Yogi Boko, the Daima. She by ma, the Tidmari Ari, the Condition, and you read that a bit of Maya. Take a Shiva, Jure, and Yava, and a little Matago to her.
In the past, Sayadawgyi spoke in a general way about how a child going to kindergarten starts to learn. So that the child will be happy in school, they start out by singing and learning rhymes. And when the child enjoys going to school, then they start to learn the alphabet, together with saying things, together with verses and rhymes. So in every language, children start out learning in this way, starting by learning the letters. They say the sounds, and at the same time they learn what the letter looks like. And when they know the alphabet, then they learn words and vocabulary, starting with just a few small words. They don't learn very much all at once. In English, for example, the alphabet A, B, C, D, and so on, they learn the alphabet like this, And then they start to learn spelling small words like C-A-T, cat, and R-A-T, rat. And so when they learn like this, the children can't just learn it in their minds. The teacher shows the children how to pronounce the letters and words, and the students copy the teacher, and they learn how to make the sounds properly. So we should look at this example in thinking about what yogis do. For starting yogis, it's very important to use labels when observing the arising object. It's one of the most important things to do. A task that is very important to do, is among the most important things one can do, has 4 characteristics. And these are, first of all, that it is something a person must do, him or herself. Someone else must do without fail. So the first characteristic is that the task must be done without fail. You can't not do it. And the second is that one has to do it oneself. Someone else cannot do it for you. And the third characteristic is that it needs to be done in time and on time. It needs to be done regularly and before it's too late. And after all this, later, what will happen is that there will be innumerable benefits, countless benefits come from doing the task. This is the 4th characteristic. So a task which has these 4 characteristics is among the most important things that one can do. And it's very important to teach children how to say the letters, how to read letters. And it's a task that the child has to do, him or herself. It has to be done, it has to be learned on time and in time. And it's very beneficial, because when the child is able to say the letters, recognize the letters, read them, read words, then sentences and short paragraphs, read about things, then slowly the child builds up knowledge. And the first thing that the child learns to do is how to make the sounds. And later, when the child is skilled, the child's able to read silently and understand everything just by looking at it. So yogis too, at first, their sati and samadhi is not yet strong, and to label is very beneficial. So we should make a note of this.
Buddha Sabima Pannatti so that's very don't have a Pannatti go Pamalo piano Bali Piet Piano Piano Nalebu Kayama Tipiero Tisi Tatos Tisi Jet Tisi Tato Yeah You did me Mimi Mayo, Mimi watching Mayo. Teacher, Yaishiva, Mimi Mago, where Kurema, Santa Chiluchi, Marari, Piorari, Janari, Nurari, Kerari, Piorari, Puranura, Era, Porari, Donatina, Sotari, Tidari, Tituari, Kanzarari, body. Miyashi wale tari, terari go, ane lo kawa, ane sura meaning body, ane. Tege shire ane mishire ane namyushi wale. Ago aga paramatha aashin, nyane tuyare ane tiwe. Atapissaka look over there. Go away, go away, Tiare, Yare, Paramata look over there. That the Gashi Hoshi was the Duvaro. The Gashi Hoshi there, two she there, the boy alive body, immediately people over there, immediately Tapio, Dhamma over there. And a Pannatti look over there.
In the Buddhist text, there's a word called Pannatti, and in Burmese it's pronounced similarly Panyat, and in English sometimes it's referred to as concept or name. And the literal meaning of Pannatti is hard to understand. So what it means is that it causes us to know. It makes things known. It makes something known. And there are many things to be known in us and in the environment. So in our body, for example, things to be known are hardness, softness, coarseness, gentleness, solidity, flowing, stickiness, heat, cold, lightness, stiffness, tension, movement, knowing, contact, feeling. There are many things. And these are things, how should I say, these are referred to as things which have meaning, or I'm trying to think of a good word for this, but these are things which are meaningful. They refer to something. And the things that I just listed, that Sayadawgyi just mentioned, these are all things that constitute ultimate reality. That is, they are things that are directly observable, directly known by us. This is what called atapachaka, something that it can be directly known by our mind, also called paramatta, ultimate reality. And names appropriate to these things come into being. And we know these things by their names. And this is what Pannatti means, the names which cause us to know something which has meaning.
Amita Suraga Pia Kanya Dhamma Dhamma Javara. Korea Pinidanga Pule to let Leore at Tono Tomaba. A malo swing Pudo, illness so hard. So, either to follow Lumiabo. Pore how later to Tono Tono. Later, I reported to Tono. To Kiane, like Fete, to Bawa, like body. Nabaya, Mileria, Kakapito, Pala, Era Palido, Tajja, Alu covered. Tato to the Bawa, like Popo, to a Chow like body, Chow like body, Popo, the Bawa. Leodo Sa Chite Ami Era Tisa Tisa look over Pignatine Paulino say Tisa Pignati look over People is Vawane Leo Yide Tisi Chepolitama Era Tisa Pignati look over the Lumura Badarima Era Shiva as well.
to name something or label something, the name or the label needs to be appropriate for the thing that we are labeling. So in the body, heat arises, we label it as heat, heat, or hot, hot. We can't just go and call it cold. Lightness arises, we don't just go and call that heaviness. Heaviness arises, we don't call that lightness. According to what it is, there are names that are used, names appropriate to the thing itself. And the word for this is in Pali is Tajja Pannatti. So ta and ja and Pannatti. Pannatti means name. And name, it's a name which occurs or arises, that's what the ja stands for, according to the true nature of the thing, according to this thing which arises due to causes. So it is a name which causes us to know the thing, and it's a name that is suitable, that suits the thing itself. And these names, these words, exist in every language, this type of naming. So a name arises, comes into existence that is appropriate for the true nature that is there. So a label or a name is just a name, and this is what the word Tajja Pannatti means, a name. Name appropriate to the object. And because the name refers to something which is really there, it's called in Pali Vijamana Pannatti. Vijamana means it's something that actually exists, not imaginary.
Korea Pura Polochi, Pure, Atono, Era Atono, Kansamu Polochi, Kansamu Korea, Kaunam, Kamu Poli, Tanuribo. See, I saw the Kamala, Jamu Polochi, George Atono, Namu Polochi, Sana Atono, Shamu Polochi, Charles Atono, Yamu Polochi, Yata Atono Poli. That is your luncha, Ya Kaitama. Yona Tabawa Diari, Shini Vadema. Eddie Tabawa Diari, Yaton the Garnet, Tuare, Lande, Chari, Tuare, Lande, Chari, Yates, Atono, Polaraha. The gay she diari, Jogu Viro, Eddie she Jari Audio, Polare, Nami. ဒါဒီကိစ္စပညာတည်းရှိတယ်မျက်စိမှိတ်လိုက်တယ်မှိတ်တယ်ဆိုတဲ့အသုံးလုံးမျက်စိဖွင့်လာတယ်ဖွင့်တယ်ဆိုတဲ့အသုံးလုံးစိတ်ကြည့်နေလို့ရှိရင်အောက်တဲ့ဖြစ်တယ်အောက်တယ်ဆိုတဲ့အသုံးလုံးဖြစ်ပေါ်လာတဲ့သဘာဝအလိုက်ပေါ်လေအသုံးလုံးလေးတွေကနောက်ကနေဘာပါလာတာပေါ့လေအဲ့ဒါဒီအကုန်လုံးပါဠိလိုကိစ္စပညာတိလို့ခေါ်ရတယ်
Meditating yogis now, when they come to a sitting posture, they put their mind on the abdomen, and when they breathe in, the abdomen rises or expands. When they breathe out, the abdomen falls back down. So we use the words rising and falling. Rising is just when the abdomen becomes stiff or full of air, tight and tense. The falling, the abdomen collapses, gets empty, becomes relaxed. So these are names, rising and falling are names that are appropriate to the true nature that is really there at the moment. When there's heat, the name that refers to it is heat. Cold is referred to as cold. When there's feeling, it's feeling. When it's bad feeling, then it's bad. If there's lifting, the vocabulary lifting is used. Moving is referred to as moving. Placing as placing. Standing as standing. At the moment of lifting, moving, placing, there are mind and matter occurring. And we use ordinary words, lifting, moving, placing, standing, to refer to what is, to the true nature that is happening at that moment. And these are referred to, these names that are used are referred to as Tajja, Pannatti, names appropriate to the thing itself. And in the same way, there's phenomena such as closing the eyes, opening the eyes, or focusing. So these, in those moments, true nature is occurring. And according to the true nature that happens in that moment, the vocabulary of the terms or names, closing the eyes, opening the eyes, focusing, these come into use, these arise. And these are all called Tajja Pannatti, names which suit the thing itself.
လှုပ်ရှားတာအဲ့ဒါရဲ့တကယ်ရှိအဟုတ်ရှိနေတယ်အဲ့ဒါပရမတ္ထအစစ်ပဲသူကတော့မျက်မှောက်တွေ့လို့ရနိုင်တဲ့ပရမတ္ထအစစ်ပရမတ္ထတဘာဝလို့လည်းခေါ်ပါတယ်တဘာဝဆိုတာဘာဝဆိုတာဘဝတိဥပ္ပစ္စတိတိဘာဝဘဝတိဥပ္ပစ္စတိဖြစ်နေရှိနေသောကြောင့်ဒါဖြစ်နေရလို့ရှိနေတော့ဖြစ်လည်းဖြစ်တယ်ရှိလည်းရှိနေတာပဲစသဖြင့်ဒါရင်းလို့မရဘူးဒီတောင်းတာအဲ့ဒါဘာဝအဲ့ဒီဘာဝဟာဝါယောဓာတ်မှာသာဒီတောင်းတဲ့တင်းနဲ့လှုပ်တဲ့သဘောရှိတာပေါ့တကောကိုယ်စီဖြစ်သောတခြားတတ်တယ်မရောကိုယ်စီဖြစ်သောဘာဝတောင်းတင်းလှုပ်ရှားတဲ့အရှိသဘောတဘာဝကိုယ်စီသဘောဒါဝါယောရဲ့ကိုယ်စီသဘောအဲ့ဒါကိုဓမ္မနဲ့တွဲပြီးတော့သဘာဝဓမ္မလို့လည်းဒီလိုလည်းပဲပြောကြပါတယ်ဓမ္မထို့တူပဲအခြားခြားကိုယ်ရဲ့ဘာလည်းပဲအတီးတီးပေါ်နေတာလည်းရှိနေကြပါအဲ့ဒါလည်းအကုန်လုံးသဘာဝဓမ္မတွေကြီးပဲအဲ့ဒါကတော့တကယ်ရှိအဟုတ်ရှိတာပဲ
So we apply these names, Tajja Pannatti, names appropriate to the thing, when on the true nature which arises. So the true nature is simply mind and matter. And in the body, the most obvious of what occurs in the body is the air element, Vayodhatu. So one puts the attention on the abdomen in sitting, and the rising arises. The rising is the name, Tajja Pannatti, the name that refers to the way the abdomen gets stiff and expands. It describes this occurrence. And for falling, also, falling is just a name for the true nature that happens in that moment, the collapsing of the abdomen, relaxing, lifting, moving, placing. These are just names. They're not true nature themselves, but it is the name that refers to the thing. So what is really there at the moment of lifting or moving or placing, what is there is stiffness or tension or movement. And these are things which can really be seen by us directly. And they are also called sabhava, or true nature. So this word bhava, the first step, this part of it, bhava, bhavati upajati ti bhavo. This means that the word bhava is explained etymologically, that because it happens, because it exists, it is called bhava. So stiffness, for example, that occurs in the body, this is really there. And the word sabhavo is explained as seko bhavo, sabhavo. Seko means individual. That means that the nature, the characteristic of air, for example, is not like or not mixed up with any other type of characteristic. It is unique to the air element. So sako bhavo, sabhavo, its own individual nature. And together with this, the word Dhamma is added, sabhava Dhamma. So there are many, many types of sabhava Dhamma besides stiffness and tension. And these are really there. They really exist.
Kulu Jana Jaya Tomo Chinyi Sunu Jaya Tinibi Solution Amiva Tinibi Solution To let me tell you the book ha Papilo immediately Amale Polare Hale Dari Saiki Mapibula Immediately show the away. Good theatre that's the Korea, the Bavari, Tibo looked away. The Baba Tibo, the Yichi, immediate Matevene, Chuba, Aliti, Pidave, Daluyama Mola. Immediate that by Jesus, she the lay. And I listen as you.
There are many types of true nature in one's body, sabhava. And we learn about this. We learn by reading or by hearing, by discussing. And we know, when we know their names, when we know the true nature, why is it that a person who wants to know this true nature should use labels in order to know the true nature? Why should they use names? It just confuses things to use labels or names in order to know true nature. Meditation is for knowing sabhava, it's for knowing true nature. To know sabhava is very important. So isn't it enough just to look and see? Why do we use labels? So this is something to think about.
တရားထုတ်တဲ့ယောဂီပုဂ္ဂိုလ်တွေတန်တရားရှင်းရှင်းနဲ့ပေါ်လေအထုတ်ကြအောင်ဆိုပြီးတော့ကျမ်းဂန်မြောက်မှာကအမေးဖြေလေးနဲ့ပေါ်လေဖြေထားပြဆိုထားပါတယ်မိကုံးလေးတွေထုတ်ပြီးတော့ဖြေကြားထားပါတယ်သဘောဝသိကြပါတယ်ဒါ
So, because of that type of doubt that arises, that meditating yogis have when they do the practice, in the text, this is posed as a question and answered, because in order to answer this doubt that people have.
Nanuja Sodana Vyasi. ဒီထဲမှာအပြစ်တင်မရစေဆိုတဲ့အဓိပ္ပာယ်ပါပဲအပြစ်တင်တယ်ဆိုတာကရှုပ်ချတဲ့အနေနဲ့မဟုတ်ပါဘူးအပြုသဘောဆောင်တဲ့အနေနဲ့ပေါ်လီစာသဘောကိုရှင်းရှင်းလင်းသိရအောင်ဆိုပြီးတော့အပြစ်တင်တဲ့သဘောမျိုးပါပဲတိတ္တပညာတိဝတေနတိတ္တပညာနဲ့စသဖြင့်ဘုရားနာမည်ပေါ့ဖောင်းတယ်လာကိုဖောင်းတယ်ပိကြတော့ပိနေကြွမှုကြွတယ်လှမ်းမှုချလှမ်းတယ်ချမှုချတယ်ဆိုရမှုရက်တယ်ဆိုတာဒါတွေကသတိစပိယတိသူပေါ်လာတဲ့အာယုံအလိုက်ပေါ်လေတိစပိယနဲ့ဆက်ပြီးတော့တကယ်အရှိသဘာဝတရားတွေကိုတောင်းတာတင်တာလှုပ်တာပေါ်တာတွန်းတာတိုးတာလေးကြသွားတာပိကြသွားတာစသည်ကိုဒါမျိုးလေးတွေပေါ့တကယ်သဘောတရားအစစ်တွေကိုအမိနာမတွေနဲ့စိတ်နဲ့သိသိကြမဟုတ်ဘူးလားတဲ့အမိနာမတွေမပါဘဲနဲ့သဘောဝသက်သက်တွေကွက်ပြီးတော့ရှုလို့မရဘူးလားလေ့လာလို့မရဘူးလားတဲ့ဒီလိုမေးပါတယ်ဒါမေးတဲ့မေးခွန်းပါပဲ
In the text it starts off by saying nanucha, which is like saying, I have a question, excuse me. And the person is trying to simply point out what they see as being a fault in an open and honest way. So the question that arises is, isn't true nature like stiffness or tension or movement, relaxation, lightness, pushing, pulling, heaviness, pressing? Isn't this true nature that is involved in moments of like rising or falling, lifting, moving, placing, and standing? Isn't it being known by means of a name or a concept? When we label, aren't we just using a name to try to know true nature? So can't we just know true nature separately without these names? That's the question. The question raised contains a valid point. So the text goes on to say, yes, this is true. But this only occurs in the early part of the practice, before concentration and knowledge is developed, before these are good. When power has not yet arisen, when the observation is not yet continuous, when sati, samadhi, and panya have not yet arisen, we have to use labels. And it's similar to a child who learns the letters. First of all, saying them aloud, spelling out, learning short words, reading aloud. This is similar to what we do.
Toto Bawanaya Pana Uttamanaya Bawanaya Suraguna Tachina Secretary from you to Delata. The sailor that say, the Guna to Sessala, a good young lady, the Guna to Sessali the Roboli. Sa Chilada, Chilade Halede, Hello say you lady, Toto Lada, Pugiola, Niala Bolera lady. Hello Chilishi Yena. Now, Tinyali Badia, Sense Killer. Eriga Jaro, a meter for Malurova, Pinyate, Sangamati, Sangamate to order. Immediately disappear, Tatania, Era Congo Cholo, Era Cheto Maluro, Secretary, a Tete Pore, Aum, Have, says a video, Charlie Dora. Titi Niroda Babe, so
when one practices reading a lot, then one becomes skilled in reading, and one no longer needs, as one develops in reading and goes from grade to grade, eventually one no longer needs to read out loud or spell out loud, but one can just read and know what is on the page. So when a yogi has enough practice, it's the same way. Before one develops the ability, then one has to use labels. Before samadhi, jnana, before concentration and the knowledge which comes from concentration, before this is developed, one needs to use labels in order to be able to see the objects clearly, and so that one thing and another, so that one will be able to see the difference between two different things. So it's not that labeling is not something that the yogis are asked to do because it is inappropriate. It's very appropriate to do it. However, as the text continues to explain, bhavanaya panna, when the bhavana mind is developed, that is, when the bhavana consciousness occurs one after another, continuously. First of all, it comes into existence, and then it gets developed, becomes larger, becomes stronger, better. So when it is well developed, then it is said, Pannatti samatekamidva sabhave yeva chitan tetati. At that time, when the bhavana mind is well developed, then what happens is knowledge develops stage by stage. The mind goes beyond concept, it goes beyond the name, and it rests on each newly arising object and knows it.
Now, Dhamma Sissa Video, Tachina Secretary, you were dancing through Shibiro, Sig Ari, Tisuna Kama. Now, what Yani Yijit Tisuna Kama, Jusuru, Erika Jalusi, and Mitako Malo, Tari Tiuli, Jusachiva. The Hinton part came over, the two yogis of the Green part came over to Yala Nimara. A season in Ocean, Pongolo in Yavoli. The Hinton part of you, the Caesars are out of the Pogori, Tia Yago, the Tijavale. Took the Calais to go to Oleria or Shayla Shuna. Kurega, the gay sheet of our Tiago, took the Tadayi to get a 10 on him. Eriga Pure Oliver. But he looked on Mago where Malonaro. Very lean and say, I don't like to say, Majaro Babu, Tiboku, the great Chanda Siku, doing about it. And I delay the young lady Sabido Pure Valley. No need is Jama Shumapo Nina to body. Hulu, this a pignatine. Shunaya and every now, this a pignati. Loto, I mean, but that's even Money only is Sabido, Yamship only the Pure Baume. The near Dave, Toja.
Later on, when one noting follows another without a break, and the pure mind seems to be lining up one by one, mental energy has been developed. Later, when vipassana knowledge is complete, there is no longer any need to use labels. One can simply watch and know. Try it and see. Within 3 weeks, and for some people within 2 weeks, one can reach this stage. However, if one is thinking or not working properly, it is not possible. People who practice respectfully, with meticulous care and continuity, are sure to gain this knowledge. The true nature which really exists within one's body will appear to be very swift. Then one will be very happy. And one will no longer want to miss a single noting. If one continues in this way, it won't take long. The person is sure to gain true happiness and peace. Today, Sayadawgyi has begun to speak about this. Tomorrow, he will speak about how one needs to note using Tajja Pannatti, appropriate labels or concepts, and how one comes to be able to note and know without using labels. This is all for today. Sadhu.